What is going on, Pokemon community? It is Achilles018 here, and today we are talking about my top 7 Pokemon generations. Why top 7? Well, because at the time of this recording, there are 7 unique generations of Pokemon main series titles from the Game Boy to the Nintendo 3DS, with the Let's Go games on Switch falling into an awkward middle ground between Generation 7 and 8 situation of its own, so Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee will not be on our list today. That's a video for a different day. Of the 7 generations of the Pokemon main series games, everyone has their favorites, whether it's nostalgia for the first Pokemon game you ever played, or recency syndrome making you think the most recent, graphically updated, and beautiful game is the best of all time, or possibly a more objective approach, choosing to focus on the facts of what each generation brought to the table that hadn't been done before. Regardless of how you approach it, we all have our favorites, and I can't wait to talk about mine, so let's go. Number 7. Generation 3. The 7th spot was the hardest one for me to pick because I think placing a generation at the bottom of this list means that I think it's the worst, and it's really anything but that. I thoroughly enjoy Pokemon, if you can't already tell, and I truthfully enjoy my time with all the Pokemon generations and each game within them. Generation 3 came right out the gate hitting longtime fans square in the nose though. Not the game's fault, but for those who don't know, Generation 3 was the first generation on the Game Boy Advance, and with the new hardware and software came some technological limitations. Namely, Pokemon captured in Generations 1 and 2, meaning every Pokemon game in existence at that point, could not be transferred or traded into Generation 3. What does that mean? It means the literal 150 hours plus I've spent capturing, trading, training, and developing my Pokemon in Pokemon Blue didn't matter in this new future. Those Pokemon I loved were stuck behind the proverbial glass ceiling that was Generation 2. Generation 3 was the beginning of a new world, and the old world was being left behind. Anyway, there was that minor detail. Of course, if Ruby, Sapphire, or Emerald were your first Pokemon games, that wouldn't have mattered much to you. Moving on, despite having the best legendary trio in my opinion, the best dragon with the best shiny form, and one of the best memes ever created in the history of gaming, this generation being at the number 7 spot just comes down to personal preference and playstyle. While Generation 3 made a significant step forward in technically improving and, in my opinion, fundamentally establishing the metagame, for the casual player, me, whose primary focus and enjoyment revolves around the core story experience rather than the competitive scene, the Hoenn region fell a bit flat for me. The Hoenn region was beautiful, terrifically designed and diverse, but I didn't feel like I was part of the region or the culture. Johto from Generation 2 was overflowing with cultural landmarks, story, and non-essential NPC dialogue that made the region feel alive with a rich heritage. Plainly, I just felt that wasn't as present in Generation 3. Maybe I just had my expectations too high, or Generation 2 was an impossibly tough act to follow, but while I thoroughly enjoyed the game, it felt like less of a journey, or maybe less of an experience is the better term. The characters were great, Wally is among one of my favorite rival characters due to his personal development and story, the gym leaders were mostly fun and memorable, and I think the starters are among the best ever. I understand it may be blasphemous to say this, but in my opinion, the remakes Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are better because they fixed a lot of the lore and story issues that the standard Game Boy Advance generation titles kind of ignored from years ago. The Zinnia post-game interactions in the Delta episode of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire got some mixed reviews, but I was at least happy to see a more lore-driven focus in some post-game. I know, the Battle Frontier. How could I forget? While this area was a competitive meta player's dream come true, and I absolutely think the community got a huge disservice by not having it in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire games, I'm just more of a casual story-driven player than a competitive one, so that feature, while fun, was not the highlight of my Hoenn experience, and yes, I do realize that I'm in the minority in that conversation, but it's still the truth for me. All in all, Generation 3 was grand. It brought innovative traversing features such as the running shoes and allowed us to travel more efficiently in a more environmentally diverse region than we've ever experienced before. Hoenn was a beautiful region with big cities, small towns, versatile landscapes, and just the right amount of water. The champions of the region were decent compared to other generations, the gym leaders were mostly memorable, and your rival in my opinion was excellence on Wally's end and mediocrity on the part of Brendan or May. The starters were great and the legendaries were, well, legendary. All of that being said, while I remember Generation 3 very fondly, and I'm currently replaying Emerald again as of this recording, it just wasn't my favorite journey compared to the other Pokemon main series titles, so Gen 3 is my 7th favorite Pokemon generation. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I hope you enjoyed today's Pokemon content. If you did, please leave a like so I can better understand the content you like and don't like. Want to join the conversation? Leave a comment down below, I do read them. Finally, be sure to stay up to date with my content by clicking the subscribe button. That's all from me, have an awesome day, and I'll see you soon with more Pokemon content.